this is like unrelated, and I guess that maybe we'll bring this up, or maybe I'll just start the episode like this if it ends up turning into a conversation. But I was writing a story the other day about Habib. He did an interview talking about kind of what he misses from fighting and what he doesn't anymore, and he was like, I like Habib up there with the fighters who notoriously had difficult weight cuts, right? It was always
Yeah.
such a worry whenever he had a fight coming up. Like a fight week, a Habib fight week was always a nervous time getting close to weigh-in day. And he was like, I want to do one more. Like one, not a fight. I don't want to fight, but I want to do one more weight cut because there's nothing else like it. Like you never feel that way doing anything else. Which I was like, those those weight cuts were hell for you. Like,
Yeah, I think it's the euphoria of completing a weight cut and then getting to rehydrate afterwards. You know what I mean? There is actually no better, like when you've been sort of sacrificing and stopping yourself from eating certain foods and stopping yourself from drinking and excluding yourself from certain social events, even just because you know you need to make weight, or you have to go to a restaurant and eat bloody sashimi and you can't have a freaking sushi roll. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I can understand that at the end. Now, don't get me wrong, some people do that for weeks on end. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, as I can imagine, Habib probably had to do that for like at least like 6-7 weeks, like dieting just to get down. Whereas with me, it's actually quite easy. I could probably get away, like John Jones. I think he was like fight week, and he had like some cookie pie thing that like before he met, because he was just so on point with his weight. Obviously, higher weight classes are different to lower weight classes, but as I say, the euphoria after you've actually just finished the weigh and you can have that first sip. Like, I swear to God, there is probably nothing better than that. Like, well, I mean, there are many great wonders of life, but that is probably one of them. If you've never experienced it before, and you do that, like, honestly, like the amount of relief and just like joy from having a sip of water, you really do learn to appreciate the good things in life.
I imagine most people in their lives have at one point, like been incredibly thirsty for whatever reason, and that first bit of water that you get is like it's
Yeah.
like a religious moment. So you amplify that with the fact that like you are draining your body of water and doing it on purpose. I imagine it amplifies it 100
Oh,
times.
it's like yeah, like the magnitude of how good you feel. It's like the dopamine hit. It's not just like a normal dopamine hit. It's like a freaking explosion, like a volcanic eruption of dopamine just like squirting all over my body. Do you know what I'm saying? I mean, yeah, if that's a good description for you. Sorry if that sounded a bit inappropriate, but hey, we move.
I mean, I'm definitely gonna leave this whole chat in, so we'll start the episode like this, I guess. We weren't able to do the live for Gladiator Diaries episode 10, but I don't think it matters too much because this is a big episode. I mean, literally a big episode, because not only later on in the episode are we going to chat about a clash of two of the baddest men on the planet later this weekend. We've also got news this week. The UFC schedule is crazy at the moment. We got news that one of the UK's own is going to be fighting for the interim heavyweight title in the UFC. So there's big stuff there. But also, of course, this is the last episode before you head off to Brazil. So I feel like we've been doing little bits here and there of talking about your camp, but now we can kind of, now that you are in just slightly before fight week finally gets underway, we can actually talk about it overall and stuff. How has the preparations for this fight in particular been compared to your other two since your UFC comeback?
I mean, well, you can just tell. Look at that jawline. Oh my lord! This is how you know the whole training has been going. Just by that, nothing else. Not even by the technique or the training. Nothing. Just strictly by the jawline. My jawline went like this. I wouldn't be near as where I need to be before a fight. Anyways, right. That's just me being stupid. Now let's get on to the serious conversation. I've mentioned it before in previous episodes, I believe. I'm definitely peaking at the right time. I'm peaking right when it gets to the actual fight. You know, I feel like everything is at the highest level that it could possibly be. Technique wise, strength wise, cardio. Oh my lord, cardio is like a whole nother conversation. Like the amount of extra breath I'm able to get just from having two nostrils instead of one. That's a massive game changer. I feel like I'm much more able to do more and more rounds and to go at a higher intensity. Technique is just, like I say, just always just getting better, and I feel like bits where I will maybe a bit rusty earlier on in camp are now starting to sharpen up a lot. And but you know what? I feel like my training partners are now also getting better, such as Will Curry. I've got Arunus, who I do a lot of my wrestling with. A lot of these guys are just cleaning up their technique. You know, they're getting better at their defenses, so it makes it harder for me to attack on them. And same with jiu-jitsu. So in reality, like, you know, as I'm leveling up, so are they. So it just means that you're just continuing to compete at a very, very high level with every single discipline. So yeah, I feel like I would have hit my stride right when I need to, which is right now, properly in that warrior mentality. Been listening to a lot of Gladiator music. I'm probably going to end up watching the film like at least twice before the fight. Strength and honor, you know, and it's good. I've got Will to really instill that in me. He's a proper warrior, and especially the way that he thinks about things. Like, you know, like I say, I know we've had our fun times and our jovial times with our bloody, you know, medieval bard music, but at the same point, like he's very spiritual and also very in tune with like I say, how fighters or warriors, like in the olden days, like MMA fighting in comparison is nothing to having to go out and, you know, essentially fight for your life and, like, you know, thrust swords through men's bodies, you know what I mean? So this is like almost like a very watered down version, a very fun version, you know, and we're getting paid to do this, you know. So yeah, what can I say? I'm definitely feeling great, and as always, my skill level, I know it's a cliche to say, but it's probably the best that it's ever been. And I'm really looking forward to go out and put on a performance out here in Brazil.
This is definitely one of the things that I knew about you just through interviewing you in the past, but I always knew that and because you do it constantly, where you flip from being, you know, just very like casual joking around, and then it's like there's a switch. As soon as you talk about your career, your ambitions, the journey, it's like it suddenly is like, you know, like to some people, you know, they'll tune in and they're like, oh, you know, they're just having a joke around talking about fights and stuff. But then, like, that's what's interesting about doing this whole podcast is like, well, yeah, but this is your life. Like, this is what you do day in and day out. So it's like a switch that flips. But it's been interesting to see how the close circle you have around you are very much the same, because I experienced kind of the casual jovial side to that when we were in London for Cage Warriors when Will got his win, and you guys are all joking around and just having a great time celebrating the victory. But from having, you know, your dad, through having Will on the show, it's like they do it as well, where it's like we can joke around about fighting and stuff like that, but there's like a switch that goes where it's like as soon as I say, how do you think the fight's going to go, it's like a
Yeah.
completely different person that you're talking to suddenly. Like, I imagine that's massive for someone like you to have those people around you who aren't just there to keep your spirits high, but like they can dial you in at any moment as well. Because
Oh yeah.
some of the motivational speeches that have been said on this podcast alone, they give you
Oh,
chills.
yeah, many sound bites have been made out of these podcasts, that's for sure. Especially with like having my dad and Will and Paulie on there. But yeah, like I say, what I've noticed is that my circle, the real ones, have been there the whole time. You know what I mean? Obviously, Will, I guess you could say, came in a bit later into my journey, but he came in at the right time. Do you know what I mean? And I've known him before, and we've always got on well with each other. And now everything's just sort of like I say, just compounded and gotten even better. And he gels well with my dad, and he's gotten even more serious himself with everything. He's gotten much more skillful, much stronger just from doing our training and stuff like that. It's very interesting to see how far he's going to go, because I know it's going to be definitely a rise to the top, and definitely to the UFC for sure. So to have those people that are like continually like motivating you, like, you know, like I say, like you said, you know, having a joke and a laugh. And but that's where it's like, you know, like with my dad, like our relationship, like I remember when I was younger, when I was a kid, and you know, uh he was training me, and you're sort of wondering, dad, like, why is my dad pushing me, why is my dad being so harsh on me, you know? And like, not to say that, you know, it was a very good relationship because we were always joking and laughing, but like, you know, at the same time, like, I was very scared of him, whereas now we've got a much better relationship in terms of like we're much more connected as human beings, and like, you know, we really are best friends, and we know that when we have to go to war, it's like it's really quite special. It's like you feel like someone's right behind you, like I say, going into war with you, like, you know, like in 300. I believe that, in, you know, Leonidas had one guy who had his son, you know, and they're going into battle together. They're literally side by side, and they're like flesh and blood. Like, this is what that kind of feels like with guys like, obviously, my dad, and then Will, and then Paulie, and everyone who's very close to me. You know, I don't try and be like, don't get me wrong, I like to be friendly with people, I like to be cool with people and stuff like this, but I'm not trying to be in connection with so many vast amounts of people. There's people that I'll make time for, and then that's pretty much the people that I want to continue to keep my time for and stuff like that. Sometimes I almost feel bad because I wish I had more time for certain people. But then when your mind's completely engaged and involved in the fighting, the people who are also engaged in the fighting are going to become more prominent figures in your daily routine, which obviously involves Rose, my dad, Will, you know, like I say, Paulie, and you know, and Danny Batten as well, and Raymond. So, you know, this is just how life goes. You know, obviously you are who you surround yourself with, and the environment that you're kept in is what helps ground you and put you in the right place. So I'm glad that I've got great people around me.
Yeah. I don't know how much we should spend talking about the opponent for this fight. We've kind of touched on Petrino a little bit. I'm not sure whether this is better saved for next week, but then I also think one of the things that you said last week, before we started recording, when I said about how we're going to make it work with you being in Brazil, was to just, you know, we'll try and do it on a Thursday, like, and it'll be close to the fight, but it gives you something to do and stuff like that, which I can only imagine how tough that is on fight week, trying to just keep busy to some degree. So I feel like next week maybe we should just talk about the experiences of a fight week, because that's
100%.
a
I'm
crazy
definitely down.
experience.
I'm definitely down for that. And obviously, I'm leaving for Brazil on Saturday. We're going to get there very early on Sunday morning. So you know, there'll obviously already be many stories to tell, even from there, and how the fight goes in the media, and you know, and then Thursday would be the day before weigh-in. So you know, when I'm doing my water cut and stuff like that, and you know, I probably will only be eating one meal that day and doing one training session. So there will definitely be many aspects of the game to talk about, which I'm sure will be interesting for a lot of people to find out what actually goes on. Because it's mad, because when you talk to normal people and you tell them, oh, I just got to lose 10 pounds, for me, that's nothing. 7 to 10 pounds is nothing. I mean, really, like, for me, most of the time, it's about 7 pounds I have to cut in terms of water, right? And people are looking at me like, what? You're losing 7 pounds? Because they're thinking, because obviously for someone, and my weight fluctuates all the time, you know what I mean? I usually stay around the same, but it kind of fluctuates between like a baseline sort of, you know, reading. And for some people, oh, I just want to lose, you know, especially because I've worked in the fitness industry, it's like, and I still do to this day. It's like, oh, I just want to lose 1 pound. I want to lose 2 pounds. And they're like finding it so difficult. For me, I drop it just like that. And they look at me, they're like, oh yeah, but it's easy for you. And I'm just like, do you know what? It's mad, because you just have to be just very meticulous with everything. I'll know my body. I'll know what it's like. I know what it can do. I know what it's capable of. And then next thing you know, you go out there and you just execute. But yeah, like I say, it's funny talking to people who've never done a weight cut, because you know they look at 7 pounds and think that's like, you're good, you're literally going to die if you do that. But little do they know that, you know, it's just part of the routine and part of what you do as a fighter. And like you mentioned, this is actually quite fun, although it's grueling at the time. The dopamine when you have even just like you can eat like different types of carbs and stuff like that you probably haven't touched for even just a couple of weeks. It's like, even if you've not touched it for like a week or 2 weeks, it's already just such a massive thing. Like I say, I stay around my weight, so I think I've got a bit more leeway than other fighters. But yeah, like everything's good, man.
Yeah, it's a crazy thing of like sometimes I think you forget how crazy the sport of MMA is because like 7 pounds, if you told me that I had to lose 7 pounds in like 2 days or whatever, I'd be like, there's no way. However, you saying that you've only got 7 pounds to cut, I'm like, that's not bad. But I think that's just because of being, so like engaged in the sport 24/7 that I forget that, like in average life, that's crazy. Like that seems insane. But 7 pounds is like that's not too bad,
Yeah,
Like
it mate. I mean, you see some of these guys who cut, 15-20 pounds. I'm talking water, bro. Like some of these guys are already lean and then they're cutting water, especially in the lower weight classes. Like I can't even begin to imagine what they are feeling. You know what I mean? Like me, it's just like realistically, I just have to not eat some crap for a couple of days or whatever. Um, and then just have to cut the water, because for me the water just keeps draining out of my body. I mean, once I've actually done like the sauna and everything and everything like that, like my body just naturally like it keeps flushing out water. I sometimes even have to drink extra water just to put my weight back up. Like I remember like for Las Vegas, I think I went to sleep at about 209 or whatever, and I woke up like I was still 207, and then I waited another hour or two, and I was 205 or whatever. So like I say, it's just it just keeps dropping off. The longer you leave it, obviously the more your body just sort of just flushes that out of your system. So it's a process, it's a science, and I can say that for my body type I've got it down to a T, but I would not recommend my weight cuts for other people, which is the weird thing, because people are like, oh, what is your advice, or how would you do a weight cut? I'm like, you probably wouldn't do it my way, because mine's is actually quite easy in comparison. Do you know what I mean? If I had to do like a proper weight, there'll be certain protocols to follow, but for mine it's just completely different.
Yeah. How much has that changed? I mean, it sounds like you said, for you it's different to what a lot of people have to do, but how much has that changed from earlier on in your career to now, where you've, like you said, you've got it down to a science and you know your own body well enough to know these things way in advance so that it's all regimented. But I imagine earlier on in your career it wasn't so set in stone.
Oh my lord! For middleweight, I remember there's the first, because before I used to do on the day weigh-ins for amateurs, and so you have to be around the same weight that you'll walk. You have to be around your walk around weight, which at the time was 93. Like I'm talking on the day weigh-ins, right? Which was fairly easy for me to do. But then cutting down to middleweight, that's already like 9 kilo. Do you know what I'm saying? Like that's a big drop. And some, at that point when I was younger, maybe a bit less muscle mass, I was already very lean and like maybe a bit skinnier. But yeah, middleweight back in the day, I just remember it for 3 weeks, like it was horrible, like horrible in terms of the food that I didn't even know what the hell I was doing. Like kind of, I was just following the Dolce diet, like, like just because the guy that he did an example for was roughly around the same size as me, maybe a weight class lower, I think he was. So I kind of just followed that. And yes, it worked, but bloody hell was it hard. And I remember I used to get mad food cravings. I used to have a bit more of an eating disorder at that point, like to where I was just literally looking forward to what I was going to eat after the fight was over. Like you shouldn't be looking forward to what you're going to eat after the fight. You should be looking forward to the actual fight itself. You know what I mean? I was more looking forward to, oh my God, when I go to the shop and I go to the Costco bakery, oh, what am I going to choose? What am I going to slam into that trolley? You know what I mean? So it was a lot more grueling. The water cut was a lot worse. I had to cut a hell of a lot the night before, and then quite a bit in the morning. Whereas for light heavyweight, I would literally just do it all the night before. a lot of people say that they don't want to cut all their weight the night before because then they can't sleep. But for me, that actually makes me feel drowsy, and then I wake up. Yeah, I'm dehydrated, but then I can actually, go to sleep pretty soundly. So yeah, but I remember, yeah, even at middleweight, I think it did drain me so much that I was able to sleep. But yeah, then you're already like completely depleted, and then you've got to. I look like death. I felt like death, and I looked like death. So that's why middleweight is completely out of the question. I'm so glad that I moved up a weight class because I think it definitely changed my game to make me be able to perform more. Weirdly enough, though, I still kept my cardio for middleweight. I cut a lot of weight, but I still kept. But I think I'm probably lost a lot of strength. I probably lost a lot of strength. I definitely kept the cardio, but the strength wise, I think there was something that just and your body just. It kind of like I'll get very mad like stomach problems because you're eating so stringently, and then afterwards you're just banging your food with carbs and obviously your rehydration drinks. Your body just kind of like overreacts a bit. I get a little bit of that even now at like heavyweight, but at middleweight it was like amplified. Like it was a mix between like constipation and diarrhea. Like it was weird. Like I know it sounds really horrible, but it was a mix of the two at middleweight. And like I said, that was amplified. Like now it's not too bad. Like I can regulate it pretty well. And now obviously I've got the UFC doing my rehydration, which is amazing. But yeah, mate, honestly, back in the day, it was a tall task. We got the job done every time. I've never missed weight. Sometimes I would, really kill myself. But yeah, I know my body now. I know that I need to be quite lean, very low body fat in order to hit my weight the way that I want it to. As a general guideline, yeah. At middleweight, I was like mad shredded, yeah. Like now at light heavyweight, when I can start to see veins in my stomach, which is right now, that's when I know I'm very like literally. You give me a week in terms of just maybe being a bit more stringent with my diet, and I'm on it. By the time it gets to the day before, easy weight cut. And that's what I'm starting to see right now is the veins in the abs. So we're getting there. And then, of course, all of the Instagram photos are going to be banging because I've got abs, like the proper abs, not like the custom fade abs. I'm talking like the ripped, solid bricks that we need in our lives. Do you know what I mean? So create a bit of an aesthetic for the fans as well.
When did you decide to leave middleweight to go up? I didn't even know that you used to. I mean, most fighters tend to go up a weight class at some point in their careers, but it just hadn't ever crossed my mind that you had ever fought at 185.
So madly enough, yeah. If you look back at so when I lost 2 in a row earlier on in my career, and then I had a knee injury. I had a meniscus tear, short, like after I was training like mad, getting ready to fight on Cage Warriors again, and blah blah blah. And then I got a knee injury, and then I was out for I think about 6 months, and then I got back into training. During that time, obviously, we did a lot of exercise. And before that, I didn't do any strength and conditioning with my dad. And then we just started doing it from sitting, and then obviously doing it full on. And I filled out massively. If you see my first kickboxing fight, which was my first fight like back to competition, because Cage Warriors weren't able to find me an opponent at the time. I took a kickboxing fight instead, and I won by spinning back kick in literally 15 seconds. And I looked thick. Like I looked like I'd gained a lot. Like genuinely, I think my dad's strength and conditioning program massively fit. If you look at my body back then to now, I look like a proper boy. You know what I mean? And this is I'm talking if you think John Jones won the belt at 23, and he still looked quite like a man. Do you know what I mean? And I look like a boy. Do you know what I mean? Like that when I turned 23, 24, that's when I started looking like a man, because that's when my dad started incorporating the regimen of the strength and condition, which we've talked about on the podcast before. So yeah, I mean, ultimately, as soon as I came back after injury, I'd filled out so much that I knew there'll be no chance for me. I had a struggle for my first weight cut down to heavyweight, if that gives you an indication.
Jeez.
So if you imagine, I was cutting from I'm talking 218 down to 205, and I'm talking just water. So it was, whereas now it's 212, So my body's become a bit more adjusted for that weight, and I've become more mature and stuff like this. In life, I feel like I've learned things a lot later on in life, but that's just my own personal journey, and I'm just happy for all the experiences.
Um, I think we'll leave a lot of the fight week stuff there, but I do think we should maybe talk about Petrino
Yep,
specifically here,
yep,
so that next week we'll talk about everything around the fight, because like there's tons of places people can go to learn about what a fight it is like from the fighter's perspective. But I think the fight week stuff is super interesting because
yep,
I mean the fight is an experience most people will never experience, but like a fight week is just the same. Like no one is used to going through that kind of thing. So we'll get into
yeah.
that. But when we first started doing this and we spoke about Petrino, the main kind of thing that you pointed out was that obviously he was fighting in Brazil, and then they were going to be flying you over to Brazil, and so you're like, okay, well, it's clear that the UFC constantly go on about how they want Brazilian stars and they need more Brazilians in the UFC. And so when you get a big Brazil card, you know that you're going to get some exciting guys, and they're going to fly some contenders in, and they want something big. And obviously the plus side for the UFC is if this guy wins, then he's a new exciting Brazilian contender, and if you win, you've won 3 in a row against guys that you haven't always like been the favorite against, the Tyson Pedro fight. And it's an interesting dynamic, and I imagine it's very motivating to you to look at this fight as, I'm going to this guy's backyard and he's going to be expected to win, and we're coming to spoil the party, just like you did against Tyson Pedro on that way back to the UFC. Which, I mean, we've said it a million times on this podcast. We'll say it a million times more. The circumstances couldn't have been more difficult for your UFC
Yeah.
return, and it went to plan that time. So
Yeah, and then there's excuses coming around that there was gastro and this and that, and as I've mentioned, that no one's taken into account what I had to go through to even get to that fight as well. Obviously I was still fortunate that I had a fight quite recently, which meant that like I was. But again, that's down to the person. Like if if it could have, if it, I could have just literally just let loose and say, oh, I'm just gonna just enjoy and blah blah blah. But no, I stayed training, I stayed on point, I stayed on the graft, and then the opportunity presented itself. With Petrino, obviously, yeah, Brazilian fight in his home country. In some ways that gives him an advantage, but in some ways that gives him a disadvantage. Like in terms of the pressure involved with fighting in your home country, with everyone cheering for you. As soon as it starts going the other way, that momentum can very easily shift, and that's the momentum I'll be looking to steal when I go out there in Brazil. At the end of the day, I'm gonna love it. I'm gonna love the crowd, like hating me and this and that, because you just got to embrace everything. This is like like proper like gladiator style. Do you know what I mean? You got to win the crowd to win your freedom, and I feel like as much as it's a plus for him, having the crowd cheer for him. It's also a plus for me because it gives me a bit more venom. You know what I mean? It gives me a bit more, a bit more of a violent attitude. I'm coming in there, to conquer. I'm going out there to conquer lands. I'm gonna go out there and beat their guy on the hometown soil. Like that story sounds even more sweet and even more amazing. Do you know what I mean? To just steal the life away from the crowd, and win their crowd over. At the end of the day, it's still a very beautiful country. They've got amazing people, but we want to go out there and take what's ours. And yeah, like the older days, they sail to a faraway land and go and take what's there. So this is our modern day version, and this is what I'm looking to go and do, and I'm very excited for it. Everything involved with this fight is very, like I say, motivating and very inspiring for me. As you mentioned, Petrino is the favorite. You can see when a guy's fighting in hometown, it's kind of put to the point where it's like, oh yeah, well, we're putting it to the side where the hometown guy should have that, for most people's eyes, the advantage. But I mean, look at Julius Stolarenko going over to the UK and winning. You know what I mean? So it'll be a chance to be able to turn a lot of heads. So that gives me extra motivation. As much as it is motivation for Petrine to fight his home country, it's going to be added motivation for me to go out and steal that win away from him. And like I say, go and completely solidify myself out there in a different country. And it gives me a lot of added benefits and a lot of calling cards that I can win over here. So with a lot on the line, it's going to make me fight like be even more of a maniac.
I mean, you mentioned the kind of that extra motivation in going into someone else's country and it being like a gladiator arena where you've got everything to prove to these people that are watching the fight. I think that for a lot of people, I would imagine they would say that there is no better gladiator arena than fighting a Brazilian in Brazil. Like that is a crowd that it doesn't like in the UK, it's weird because sometimes people get booed just because they're fighting a UK guy, and sometimes they don't. It's very it depends on who the UK guy is, right? Like I remember watching being in the arena for when Darren Till fought Stephen Thompson, and everyone loves Stephen Thompson, but because Darren Till kept like trash talking him in the build up, they booed Thompson because it was like, oh well, we're supporting Till and he's doing it, so we'll boo you even though we all like you.
Yeah.
It's like a weird thing, but Brazil, they don't care who you are. That's their guy, right? Like that. Like I said, you seem to thrive off of that thing of going into someone else's country and trying to take what's yours and then head back home with the victory. Brazil, no better place to do that. Like it
Oh
really
yeah,
is set up.
they are very patriotic towards their homegrown talent, and you know, you've got a young, good-looking guy that they want to get behind. That they want another Brazilian champion. As all of them, they want to have another Brazilian champion in any one of the divisions. So, for them, they're going to really want a star to be born or a star to be built, and this is what the crowd's going to get behind, and stuff like this. And it's my chance to take the spotlight. This is the opportunity for me. People can say that it's an opportunity for him, but it's an opportunity for me because now where does the attention go? It goes on to me. Same like with the Tyson Pedro fight. So, and it's a chance for me to really prove myself. I have no other things going on. I haven't got a staph infection. I haven't got my nose and stuff like that. I really do feel like I'm the best of the best that I've ever been. So it's my chance to show again everything, even more so. Like I've been letting loose more in my second UFC run, but now it's time to really show them who the fuck I am. Show them who the hell the Baltic Gladiator is. Show them that I don't back down from any challenge. There is no mercy, and I'm going in there to take what's mine. So these are all things that, like I say, really light a fire under me, and it makes me more intense. And I'm ready to go. And I'm stoic and calm and ready to go and do the job.
I think maybe the last thing to touch on in regards to this camp in particular. When we decided to do this podcast, it was right after the Zach Pauga fight. And before we did the first episode, me and you had a chat about, I think, a month before the first episode. It was quite a while before. And it was really, really soon after the Pauga fight. And you had said about how you felt like you convincingly got the win, but it's the media seemed to disagree. Which I remember at the time I didn't even hear about it. I had to go seek that out after you said it. It completely passed me by because I watched it and was like, oh yeah, you won, and then I was like on to the next thing. I didn't bother looking into it or anything. But when you look at the things that one of the things that you did say, I remember in our conversation, we compared it a little bit to the Chuck Campbell fight, which for a while was quite tentative of waiting to see which guy was going to open up. And then obviously you ended up finding that shot, which I still need to check out the clip of your dad going mental at the knockout because what a story. But what were kind of the main takeaways from the Pauga fight that even in victory you were like, I need to do this more in order for it to not be that close in the eyes of the media and the judges? Because even the judges scored it close as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, I got a unanimous decision victory, right? You could definitely say one of the rounds went to him. But
Was it
look,
two? Was it 2 rounds to 1 across the board? Did they give him 1 round? Is that why?
one judge gave me all 3 rounds.
Right. Okay. Oh,
Um,
damn. I
but
had it. I thought it was 2-1 across the
yeah,
board.
the other
My
two
bad.
scored it 2-1, and then one of them scored it 30-27 to me. But look, if you're looking at that fight, I tripped on the cage in the first round. So one of the big reasons why everyone thought, oh, you definitely lost that fight. Oh, you got dropped. No. Okay, so I tripped on the cage. That's you classing it as me getting dropped when I literally got straight back up to my feet because I tripped. You know what I mean? It wasn't like it was a flash knockdown or anything like that. Hit me with a jab. Okay, cool. Hit me with a jab, and then I tripped on the cage. And I remember that because I was the one that was in there. I tripped on the cage. Fair play to him. I got back up to my feet, and he tripped me. So that was one of the takeaways that I was a little bit annoyed about in myself. I'm like, how the hell did I let him trip me like that? Like, I should have been a bit more weary about that. But look, again, even during that part, I still got back up to my feet. And then you look at the end of that round, who the hell stole that round? I had him wobbled at least 2 or 3 times at the end of that round. So that was like a clear thing in my favor. Second round, I remember I got caught with, again, it was with a jab, and I got stumbled backwards, and my back hit the cage. Again, I didn't drop to the floor. My back hit the cage, so I didn't actually get dropped. You know what I mean? And if you look at who landed the more significant shots in the second round, it was also myself. And then the third round, it's a similar story. So, you know, in all the media saying, "Oh, he got dropped," it's like it's all a bunch of bull crap because I didn't get dropped once in that fight. You know what I mean? Yeah, I got hurt, but who got wobbled more? I think Zach Powell got wobbled more. Do you know what I mean? He got caught with bigger shots. So, you know, the takeaways from that fight was that I didn't kick enough. I didn't really set up my shots the way I wanted to. I let him sort of. I was backing up with my head out in the air a little bit too much. I should, you know, and like I say, like the cardio wise, I think, you know, maybe jet lag and my nose and other things, you know, like maybe I could have put out my energy a little bit better and, you know, actually went to grapple a little bit with him. I did a lot of good defensive things to stop him from initiating his attack against the cage. But yeah, there's a couple of things like obviously the trip I just didn't like, and I didn't really throw too much even hands from southpaw, and I didn't throw as many kicks as I would have liked. So that was like a very off fight. It was just weird. It was just completely different to the Tyson. I looked much faster than the Tyson Pedro fight. I don't know if they're, like I say, there were demons maybe heading into the apex, but I did conquer them because I did manage to get the win. I definitely felt like it was a clear victory for me. And yeah, it's just now time to make a solid victory. You're only as good as your last performance. If people think I lost that fight, well, they ain't gonna think that in this next fight, because the next fight I'm gonna go out there and go and finish him, and then there'll be literally no questions. And the fact that he's in Brazil means I need to be looking more for that finish, because judges' scorecards in another country, you know, can be swayed in a different direction. So I need to go out there and I need to go and finish this guy.
Yeah. One of the things that I hadn't mentioned yet, I think I mentioned this on the last episode, maybe, that I do a series called Devil's Advocate where I'll try and argue for why an underdog in a fight can win the fight. And it's like, you know, uh, I'm a huge fan of watching Dan Hardy's breakdowns. It's like, I'm not trying to do a breakdown, I'm not trying to deconstruct these fighters. But if someone came up to me in the street and said, oh, why can I'm trying to think of an underdog in a fight now. Like before it was cancelled, why can Stipe beat John Jones? And I'd be like, okay, well, here's a couple of reasons why Stipe might be able to beat John Jones. I put out it was a post or on a YouTube comment or something like that asking which fights should I do it for, and someone said, I'll do it for Mo's fight because you do a podcast together. I was like, I speak to him every week. What am I gonna say? Like, like, like I don't know what you expect me to say apart from I think he's gonna win, because not only do we do a podcast together, but I think he's gonna win. Like there isn't any interesting argument to have there. It's just I think that he's the better fighter.
Yeah, well, I mean, if we're looking at, like, you know, blankly, like, you know, skill set in every area, I've had way more experience. You know, I'm better from every single aspect. He's very good. He's very sharp. He's very explosive, young, very talented, clearly. But it's time. It's the Baltic Gladiators time. Do you know what I'm saying? If there's any time for it to be that time, it is right now. And it's time for me to steal the show. Like I said, you win the crowd, you win your freedom. It's time for me to earn some freedom out here. I need to show people who the fuck I am. This is it. This has always been the main question. When you got the motivation and the inspiration to do things like that, that's when you can really just let loose and be an absolute like a freaking berserker out there. You know what I mean? And this is another reason why, like I say, I'm just so pumped up and fired up. I'm fired up for an amazing fight, but I'm also fired up to go and finish this guy. Do you know what I mean? It's gonna be a cracker, and yeah, like I say, I'm just looking forward to it.
One of the things that you mentioned briefly, then you said about showing people who you are, and I heard that quote earlier, that exact same line from Tom Aspinall, who is of course going to be fighting for the interim heavyweight title at UFC 295 now. I can't believe we've had another title fight change like straight after 294, but and obviously, gutted to not get to see John Jones fight, and he's going to be out for like a year. That really sucks. So I'm surprised that he has kept the heavyweight title, because with the light heavyweight belt, we had like Yuri won it, got injured, vacated the belt because he was going to be out for a year, and then the same happened with Jamal Hill. But it's John Jones. I get that, him having the title is a big deal. But as UK fight fans, man, I can't wait to see Tom Aspinall go out to Madison Square Garden on 2.5 weeks' notice and fight for the interim belt. That is a crazy
It
circumstance.
is mad, yeah. Definitely the best British heavyweight that there's ever been. I think I'm pretty sure. And he's a very exciting fighter, very articulate, very skillful, very highly skilled in every aspect, and has just literally just picked them off one by one. And came back after injury, won a massive fight there, and now he gets the title shot. It's very well deserved. People have been talking about it for a while. The interim title, sorry, but Sergey Pavlovich has also been on a massive tear as well. So it's just a very interesting fight, and I think for UK fight fans, again, a big win with Aspinall here is just gonna it's going to be massive for the country, because we could be looking at in the future our mainstay heavyweight champion from the UK. So yeah, it's a very exciting time.
Yeah, I mean, if he obviously you've still got Garn, you've got potentially John coming back, but I think that especially with this year off, if he does come back and fight Stipe, I think that'll be it after a year. I think that if he had beat Stipe, he maybe would have stuck around for another year, but having that year off and then coming back, I just
Yeah.
don't see it. So you got a situation where if Tom beats Pavlovich, who is the actual number one contender in the division, who he's terrifying right now, the run he's
Yeah.
put together. If Tom beats Pavlovich, I think we could see Tom reign as heavyweight champ for quite a while. Like
Yeah.
it's an exciting time. There's only one thing that gets me as excited to watch a fight like then when compared to like a huge fight like Yuri versus Alex in the main event now is massive. I can't wait for that fight. The only thing that gets me that excited is UK fighters being in big fights. So when you've got Tom in the co-main and then
Yeah, it was
Yuri
very
and
well
Alex,
deserved. It was very well deserved to get that interim title shot. And like I say, both the athletes are incredibly skillful. Gone on absolutely massive runs, both of them. And yeah, it's well deserved. It's good because it shows, like, in boxing, where it's like you have like weird like fights being matched up. This is like the one that makes sense. And of course, yeah, Yuri and Alex Pereira is another fight that really makes sense. And yeah, it's a very exciting time for MMA in general. The whole world is getting filled and blasted with a load of amazing fights that have all come about weirdly in crazy situations. But the UFC is very malleable. They're able to adapt to any situation that occurs. I mean, look at what they did in COVID, and now with these situations where fights are pulling out. Obviously, wishing John Jones a very speedy recovery. He's always been one of my massive idols in the sport. But yeah, now it's obviously time for the other heavyweights to have their spot in the limelight.
yeah. Before we get talking about some other heavyweights that are fighting this Saturday night. You mentioned John Jones, who, of course, I think is one of the biggest inspirations to, if you ask any fighter, but of course, the heavier weight classes in particular. And you said, I believe it was, I can't remember what episode it was on, where you spoke about training with John.
Mhm.
Um, was it about taking that fight on short notice? Is that why we brought it up? It was about taking a fight. Oh, it was the guy that had tons of experience.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah. When was that you went out to train with John, and how long was it for?
So I remember the first time it was when Jackson Wink just created their new like facility, uh, which was like in like apparently their old facility, which is funny because John Jones now trains at their old facility,
Yeah.
whereas like their and obviously he's parted ways with the coaches and now he trains at their old facility, whereas Jackson Wink technically has a new facility, and I trained them when it just opened up. Guys like Tom Duquesnoy were training there at the time, which is crazy. And I remember I was sparring with Andrei Arlovsky, and he asked me, he actually paid for me to stay an extra week just to help. Well, I think, yeah, I believe it was an extra week to help him basically spar and train and prepare for his fights at the time, which was really cool. And then obviously that got me in good graces with the manager of the gym and all the other coaches. And then I planned to have another trip again. So it was when I just turned 22. Yeah, when I just turned 22, I went out there. Yeah, literally the day that I turned 22, I went there the next day to Albuquerque again. So the first time I went there was when I was 21. The second time was when I was 22. And then obviously John Jones wasn't there the first time I was there, but the second time I was there, obviously he was there, and then the coaches and the manager told him about me, saying, "Oh, there's this young kid. He's a heavier guy. He's a middleweight. Could be some good sparring. He's got good striking." And then yeah, we just ended up training together. Became very friendly. He was always very nice to me. Did definitely train hard with me for sure. But it's good. I got to do jiu-jitsu with him. I got to do MMA sparring with him. Got to do kickboxing sparring with him. It was a really great experience. The only annoying thing was that I had staph infection twice when I was out there, and it was pretty bad. So there was a couple of times I was sparring whilst I was on antibiotics, and with John Jones at the same time was pretty hellacious, I must say. But it was a hell of an experience, and to this day, it'll be something that I'll keep close and dear to my heart.
Yeah, I thought that because we're not going to get to talk about a John Jones fight week anytime soon, it was a good idea to get that in whilst I still remembered that you brought it up. And I mean, the Jones stuff is interesting, but I think that Arlovsky story that you said, it seems like every fighter has a story like that of a more senior fighter looking out for them in some kind of way and stuff like that, and obviously incredibly important for your development in order to be able to stay there for a bit longer. I mean, Arlovsky is a legend of the game as well, former heavyweight
Yeah.
champ. I'm glad that we brought that up so we get that Arlovsky story in, because
Yeah.
I never would have. That's crazy.
He ended up actually buying me lunch as well, basically saying thank you for helping me out and stuff like that, which I thought was really cool. He's a really nice guy as well, really funny. Sounds very similar to my dad as well, which is funny. I think he's Belarusian. But yeah, so it was definitely and I got to spar obviously with Arlovsky the second time I was there as well. So I think that was the time when he was preparing for Overeem. Actually, I got to train with him a little bit. I got asked to help him to do like wrestling and stuff like this. So if you imagine, like it's quite cool that I had some of the coaches asking me to help these guys out, and yeah, it's just an amazing experience being a young kid, just getting time with some of these like legends of the sport and being around legends of the sport. I had Donald Cerrone there. You had like really high level. Anthony Pettis was there as well. Like there were high level guys in the gym, and these are guys that I've been all looking up to. Imagine a room filled with Phil Hawes, John Jones, Cody East, who was a heavyweight in the division at the time, Dominic Waters, who was also in the UFC at the time. There was quite a big stable of really good fighters there when I went to go and try out there.
Yeah, Jackson Wink, like for ages. I mean, still a very good gym, but I remember for ages it was just like crazy how
Killers.
much tough guys like they were producing. Like
Yeah,
it was like a bit like how like ATT is or stuff like that
yeah,
now, where you'd see a guy and go, "Oh, he's good. Where's he train? Oh, Jackson Wink. Yeah, of
makes
course.
sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
From talking about the current UFC heavyweight champion to talking about the former UFC heavyweight champion, because we got Francis Ngannou is boxing Tyson Fury this weekend, which is a crazy sentence I never thought I would be saying.
Nah.
Where is your personal like hype or interest at for this fight? Because I've I've found it quite strange. It's been quieter the build up than I thought it would be. It's still been out there. Like people know it's happening because how could you not? It's Tyson Fury. He's huge in the UK, and it's Francis Ngannou. Like what a character he is, and what a story. But I think it's been a little bit quieter, the general hype for this, than I thought it would be.
Well, I mean, obviously, I think people are still taking into the, Tyson Fury has already booked a fight with Usyk. So this is technically an exhibition. So no belts are on the line. It's a 10 rounder. I think that's where it's kind of maybe not taking quite so much hype. Maybe people don't believe so much in Francis Ngannou, the MMA guy coming into boxing. Tyson Fury is a technician. He's very good at what he does. But Francis, at the same point, if he lands one of those, like one of those big bombs, like it could change the story of the whole fight. I mean, looking at the way that they're warming up the other day, and just doing like their media workouts, you can see the flow and movement of Tyson is just on another level for boxing. But again, Francis Ngannou, maybe he can weather that movement, find a corner, just pick him off and land one of those big shots. Like he has been doing in MMA. There's a lot more things to worry about in MMA, which makes it a bit of a different angle for him to land his shots. Whereas in boxing, it's literally all hands. So we'll see. Maybe the clinch will be a determining factor in the fight. I'm not sure why it hasn't been getting so much, but I think the main reason probably why is because it's technically classed as an exhibition, I think, and it's a 10 rounder. So there's not really much on the line. I think more people would get the fight, or there'll be a bit more build up before the Usyk fight, and Ngannou still wants to go back to MMA. The only way that it will create a lot of noise is if Ngannou goes out there and knocks him out. Do you know what I mean? That'll create a hell of a story to tell, wouldn't it? Do you know what I mean? So that's the only part where it's really, you know, and like I said, if you're looking at skill set wise and experience wise, people are looking at Tyson Fury thinking, well, he's probably got his numbers, but you can never count out Francis Ngannou, who's finally got his opportunity that he's been wanting for all this time, and literally his career started in boxing, and now he's finally got that massive fight, and and he's been trained by Mike Tyson as well. Like it's crazy. He's been trained by Mike Tyson to go and beat a guy that's been named after Mike Tyson. This is it's a bit of a mad one, isn't it? It's a bit crazy how everything comes sort of full circle. But Tyson's essentially preparing to beat himself. Do you know what I mean? So it's crazy, but I think it's exciting. Obviously, people are going to be tuning in to watch this. I think it's still the box office as well. So I mean, yeah, people are going to tune in. Maybe the hype hasn't been so much massive around it, but it's probably mainly due to what people expect the outcome to be. But I mean, wouldn't we just love for Ngannou just to go and do it? Do you know what I mean? Like the guy coming from MMA, with one boxing fight and going taking out a legend would be just insanity. But like I said, from a skill set aspect, that's a very tall task with Tyson Fury.
Yeah, it's just one of those fights that I'm surprised that I haven't. That the issue is, especially being like deeply invested in MMA and combat sports. I'm sure you'll have the same thing where the majority of your like feed that you're getting on social media isn't necessarily from the people who are going to be buying the pay-per-view. It's more the people who are going to be covering it or other fighters and stuff like that. And of course, if you go and ask a world champion in boxing about this fight, they're going to go, Ngannou doesn't have a chance. And so I think it's just that I constantly have a cycle of that, and so it doesn't feel like people are excited. But I'm with you. I'm going to tune in because I know that there's probably a 1% chance that Francis Ngannou, I mean, there'll be more than that, but, you know, a very slim chance that Ngannou is able to land anything substantial. But if he does, it's like the greatest story in combat sports ever. Like, he went from raised in Cameroon, homeless on the streets of Paris, wanted to be a boxer, but got told to do MMA. So he goes and wins the UFC heavyweight title and then knocks out Tyson Fury. Like, I don't care how small a percentage that is of happening, it
Well,
could.
yeah, well, this is it. This is what people want to see. This is what it's such a good feel good story, you know. But from the same point, you know, it's like you don't want that to happen to a guy like Fury because he's also overcome a lot himself, and he's done a hell of a lot of good things, and he's a very likable character. So it's a massive toss up, and I'm just here as a spectator, being entertained. Gladiator arena with two titans to see who comes out on top. And yeah, it's very, very interesting. It's very interesting, and I will definitely be tuning. Well, I would say I would be tuning in, but I'm going to be on a flight to Brazil, so I'll find out the result later on.
Man, what that is going to be. Let's say it does happen. The the moment where you land in Brazil and suddenly find out that the world of combat sports is no longer the same. Like the greatest heavyweight boxer in the world has just been knocked out by the former UFC champion. That could happen. What a shift that'll be.
Yeah, I mean, it will make you think anything's possible, right? You see everyone in the UFC the next week just freaking go out swinging bombs out there. Do you know what I mean? Everyone going out on berserker mode after seeing that fit. You know, seeing something like that, they'll be like, anything's possible.
Yeah. Oh, if Ngannou wins, you're gonna have every UFC fighter is gonna be calling for a pro boxing fight. You're gonna have people constantly name dropping
That's been great.
Canelo and
Yeah. For
Devin
real,
Haney,
bro.
all these guys. It's gonna happen so much. But yeah, good stuff. I'm excited just because I to be honest, the thing that I'm most excited for is just to see Francis Ngannou go out there and see him stand in a ring with Tyson Fury. Like, that's incredible that he dreamt of doing that and he's been able to make it happen. Like,
It is a spectacle, and it is definitely another sort of promotion of like the law of attraction, and you know,
yeah.
really getting it is what you go after and what you work hard for. And clearly, he's worked bloody hard to be in a position to be able to do that, and he's done that through the MMA world. Completely different route to how he expected it, but that's what he wanted since day one. So again, law of attraction pays dividends.
Yeah, crazy stuff. All right, that'll do it for this episode. Next week we'll be joining you from Brazil, a few days out from
Brazil,
fight
baby.
night. Exciting stuff. Thank you so much, mate, for your time as always. Good luck with the trip to Brazil. I hope everything goes well. Fight week and stuff, and I'll hit you up sometime next week to arrange.
I'll be speaking to you when I'm even more skinny, even more drawn out, and ready to go and do a weigh-in in front of a hostile crowd. So good times are coming, man. I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely. All right, nice one, man. I'll catch you next week from Brazil.
My man. I'll catch you next week, brother.
Laters.